Hey YouTube, so we are inside. It is super snowy. Looks like a Christmassy day outside. It's the first time we've had serious snow and it's January. But January is garden planting month for me, and so I usually actually do this on the first of the year. And what's interesting about this year is if you watched the video up here somewhere that we did last year, we have been gardening on this spot for 25 years, 24 years. We've lived here 25. We started in 2000 and we didn't plant a garden until 01, 02, somewhere in there. But all those years have now been erased because last year we tore all of it out. We brought a skid steer in and we just scraped everything. And we brought in new raised beds. We brought the Vigo, the big tall, they're like 30-inch, they're wonderful, they're 4x8. So we're basically starting fresh. If you are starting a garden fresh this year with, I don't know how to do this, I don't know what to do, I'm going to do it here too, so I at least know what I want to plant and I know the space that I have to work with. But I am starting from scratch. We managed to save a lot of the herbs. We had a whole bunch of raised beds that were rotting and they had all of my herbs and I have probably 35 different medicinal herbs that we grow here, and we had them all mostly in the raised beds, and we just scraped the beds and kind of healed the plants in somewhere. And I'm just like, well, I hope they make it. So I need to get to this spring and see what's made it and what hasn't. But I am going to walk you through kind of the notes that I've taken over my lifetime in this garden. This is my garden notebook that I have stuff in here clear back from like 2007, I think. I mean, here's our garden plan from 2013. So I just keep all my notes every year because if you are planting especially vegetables, you're going to not want to plant the same thing every year. This can't be, that's the corn row forever. You need to rotate things around so you're not planting the same thing in the same spot every year. So I have all my notes. I'll bring the camera around and I'll show you what I'm going to be working with as far as what I print out. I have master copies in the computer, and every year I just save a new copy for the current year and put all my notes or all of my design stuff into it. So I always have that saved master copy. So I'll turn the camera around and I'll show you what I use, and then we will kind of walk through maybe what I'm going to be planting and how I'm going to be organizing all of this, because this is sort of feels like a first for me. I haven't done this. Usually I just pull out my chart, fill in things. You know, I always look at last year's design and just move things around so that they're not in the same spot they were last year. This year's going to be fun, but very different. Okay, so this is what my old garden plan used. This is what we had for a plan. I don't know how well you can actually even see this, but we had a whole bunch of raised beds and then rows, two sides that were rows. And what we've done now is we tore out everything. And because of the new beds we've put in, all of this has now been moved over about, I don't know, 6 to 8 feet. And I'm going to go out and measure that with a tape measure and kind of show you what we're moving. But we've basically moved this middle row has moved over to about right here for the walkway. So I'm going to go out and measure that, and then I'll come back in and we will get back to this. So if you've seen the last summer's videos, we had these full of things, and I already kind of know what's going to go back in these new beds, but this was all my herb garden for the last 21 years. And what we did, and you can't see it in the snow, so there's kind of no point here, but what we did, the path used to go straight through there to the back, and it will now be straight through here. So basically all the rows on this side of this garden is 50 by 100. So all the rows on this side, we need to move that rock. There's a water faucet assembly right there. So basically we've gained, you know, I need to measure that. So all of these rows on this side of this garden need to be remeasured. And then we need to take a look at, in here, here's what Swiss chard looks like in January. You could totally still pick this. Wow. We just haven't been that cold though this year. It's really weird. So all of this, if you saw that video, we tore out all of that, all of this. There were raised beds throughout. This was all different raised beds. So I basically need to, if we're putting a new path, we need to take out that pile of bricks, and there's going to be a new path going straight back to that gate, which is going to make this area is going to be these new beds. So I have a bunch of sort of measuring and thinking to do here. So I'm going to do that really quick, and then we'll get back inside and I will show you how I have always planned my garden and what we're going to be doing for this year coming up. Whew, okay, It's probably the weirdest day to be measuring garden beds. My neighbors probably think I'm crazy. Anyway, I got my measurements, so I'm gonna make some coffee and get out of this sweater because it's really warm in here. And let's jump into what we're gonna do next year with these measurements and what you can do if you are just jumping into a whole new garden space, because that's kind of what we're doing. This is the other thing I have to figure out. This was all my herbs, and they are now going to be going in all these new raised beds. So that notebook can get set aside. And I have made on the computer, here's my list of all of the herbs that we grow. If you want to, you can scroll down this and see. But I grow pretty much every herb that I want to cook with or use medicinally, and then a lot of these we grow outside the garden and or wild. So that's that list. And then this is the new garden plan that I've designed. I just went out and measured, and you can see my original, I believe there's 10 rows here and 4 here on this side of our raspberries. We're gonna be cutting out this space won't be garden space because right now there's a water main and rocks right here. So, but we have grapes kind of right here. So this bit is a little bit shorter than the rest of this. And I'm gonna so for this year, I can still do, all my row crops can still go in here. So I have this side of my garden is also a little bit shadier, so it tends to be cooler. So that's where I use that for broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, things that don't mind being a little cooler, lettuce. So I've kind of drawn in, as you can see, we've got the new raised beds drawn in where they're going to go, and then I've measured that new space, which looks like 13.5 depth and 27 long. So I'm going to be putting in, and my rows are crammed in on this design, but in real life out there, they're 4-foot rows with 2-foot. I don't even think there's a 2-foot gap between the rows. Basically, almost the width of my rake is all I give myself between my row crop rows, because I just know that's all the space that I need to get between some of these. Except the things that are squash and vining plants, I give them a lot more space, and I just know what I need for those, so I will space those apart accordingly. Usually I'll give, the vining crops will get 2 rows to take up space, and or 3 rows. So I may put them back in that corner because they can kind of vine around and do that. So I may be doing that back corner as my vining plants area, and then we'll be putting in, we're gonna be tearing out a bunch of lavender that's back in this back corner at this point right now too. So what is kind of nice about planting this new area this year, rather than my normal process of always doing crop rotation and making sure I'm never planting green beans where there were green beans last year. This year, because of what we did last year, we tore everything out, and we actually didn't garden in the whole, that whole long side of our garden. We didn't do anything in it. We just used the raised beds because we had some serious just issues that came up last year that we did not use the garden. So it was kind of a break. So this year I don't need to really worry about rotating because we've torn everything out, and we're also going to be bringing in all new dirt. So we're going to be putting in dump truckloads of new, basically potting soil on top of the mess that's currently out there. So that'll be a whole other process, because we're probably going to cover the whole area that you see open out there with cardboard. And then we're dumping new, basically lasagna gardening, if you look up that term, very cool. Put in cardboard, and we're gonna put dirt on top of that, and we're gonna probably use that method. And I'm not sure what we're gonna use for mulch, because we have had really bad luck with straw. I love straw. When it's good, it's amazing. It just keeps the weeds down, it keeps the ground moist, it's perfect. But when it's not perfect straw, meaning no seeds, problem. If you put in straw as mulch in July, June, May, whenever you're planting and you wanna put down your mulch, I have found by August or September, it has sprouted, the seeds in the straw, like it's oat hay or whatever it was that they cut, it has seeds in it, and it has grown, and you can basically mow it with a lawnmower. It is so frustrating. It's so frustrating to do all the work and put in that kind of mulch and then have it sprout, because that was the point, is to keep it not from sprouting. Nothing should be sprouting. No weeds. We still can't get to the no weeds. I don't know. Please tell me how you get no weeds in your garden. After this many years, I still fight weeds. It's been better. Until last year, it was the best it had ever been, and we just tore it all out in the spring, I think, and after that, we just let it go. So now it looks just as bad as it did any other year, as if we've never gardened there. It's amazing to me. Like, I always joke that our dirt must just be made up of weed seeds, because when you leave it for a minute, it sprouts. Can't we ever be done? We did it for 20 years and it still just continuously sprouts weeds. So the other thing I will show you, because I keep track in my computer every year. I have I have boxes of seeds organized, and this is also the part where I'm going to write in what we're going to be planting, and then I'm going to be going into my notes because I have many notes. This is 6 or 7 pages. This is all my planting notes from 2023 because that's the last time I gardened seriously. And this, I'll just maybe you can see it. It's just basically a chart that I built in the computer, but it has the name of the variety, the planting info, so whether I planted it inside or outside or in the greenhouse, when I planted it and how many I planted, and then a little part over here at this side to kind of notes throughout the year as far as when did it come up, what was the germination like, did you replant, all of your little notes to yourself. They all go, that's what all of this is over here. So I've got variety, planting date and info, how many, and then notes about it. And then I have a whole other chart that is my, this has got harvest dates and things, but I have a whole other chart that has my preserving record. So it'll be, this one doesn't basically say how much we got off of the plants. The preserving record will show that because that'll say how many jars of beans did I put up. And so what I do is tie all of this together now, which is, it's kind of a long process, but today I'm going to sit down and start. So I start with design the garden, use this to fill in all of the things I'm going to want to plant and where are they going to be. And you can look up companion planting too if you'd love to know about that. Look up companion planting to find out there's certain plants that love to be planted next to each other and they benefit each other, which is really cool. I don't do it as much. I mean, there's, people that do the, is it called 3 sisters or 4 sisters, or where it's like corn, squash, the squash grows, the pole beans grow up the corn, and then the squash grows underneath everything, so you can plant them all together. I've never done that, but I have a lot of space to work with, so I don't need to, but it is a really cool idea. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna fill in my rows first. So my first order of business, number 1 is plan your garden. But before I plan how much, like how many rows of all these things I'm gonna plant, it's sort of a interactive project because I'm going to need to look, and if you can and preserve and do all of that like we do, and you want to put up basically all of your food through the year, keep track because you will get where how many jars did I put up, how many are left. So what I'm going to check right now is how many jars of beans did we put up last year, how many are left right now, and that gives me an average of how many jars do you use a week. And based on that, I've gotten where I know because I've done this so many years, but get some way where you can keep track of how many did you go through, how many bean seeds did you plant. Like I know how many bean seeds it takes to plant me a 24-foot row, and then how many cans of beans I will get off of that 24-foot row at the end of the year. So next year I'll know and especially if you're going to be saving seeds, you need to know, do I need to save, 150 bean seeds, or do I need 895 bean seeds? So make lots of notes. If you are just starting a garden, start a garden journal in your garden with weather notes. Keep track of your frost dates, keep track of your snow dates, keep track of all your planting dates, every single thing, every single time, all of your varieties. Keep track of when you planted, when you harvested, how much did you preserve, and keep all of those records year to year because I have all of this info. So with all of the data that I have, I can pull together every year what I need to plant, how much I need to plant. Some years, like we still have carrots. I don't need to plant carrots, beets, probably corn. I could skip those 3 things this year entirely because I know how many jars there was a year that what in the world? We have, way too many jars of carrots or beets, and I just kept canning them because it's like, if it's growing, I'm not going to waste it. So I just can all of it. And now I don't have to plant beets or carrots or corn probably this year at all. So I'll have some extra space in the garden to spread out, and I probably don't need to do pumpkin. I have a ton of pumpkins still preserved. So I need to look at all of these things and get these into this garden chart. So I'm going to get this started, but before I do that, I have to actually go and sort of like get my clipboard out and go look at how many jars of canned goods do I have left to see how many, how many rows of beans. Do we need 4 rows of beans, or do we need 1 row of beans? So I'm gonna have to go figure all of that out. The other thing that I always look at when I'm designing this, because if you look at this garden, so what I have to also keep in mind, on top of the fact that this side tends to be shadier, the sun goes across, this is north to south, and this is east to west. And so I always try and keep my taller things like corn or anything, especially corn, because and sunflowers if you're gonna do them. I keep the taller things back closer to the house, or where they're not gonna, or conversely, make sure that you plan your tall things so you are not causing shade where you don't want it. So I will put corn so that it shades my broccoli and cauliflower, because I know by the time my corn is 6 or 7 or 8 feet tall, it'll be the hot time of the year where my cauliflower and broccoli really don't want to be out in the blazing hot sun. So if they're not in the shady side of the garden, but they're on the sunny side of the garden, I'll put them on the north side of the corn, if that makes sense. So there's a lot to think about if you are starting a new space. Definitely get your measurements right, because I've had years where I've done this design and been like, I have 10 rows, I'm going to plant all these different things, and then walked out with my seeds and my gloves and my everything, and go out and sit down and look and walk off the space out there, or take a measuring tape and realize I thought I had a row more than I have room for, and had to sit down. I have a bench out there, and I sit in the spring and do all my scribbling and making notes. I literally just take this out to the garden with me when I go out. I'll take it out with me and have it on the bench with me while I'm planting. And as I plant, I fill in, yep, that row is that. How many did you plant? How many seeds? I actually count how many seeds. Not carrots, because they're tiny. They're like dust. But corn, green beans, peas, things that are big, I'll definitely count how many seeds I used, or at the very least, how many packs. If you have a 2-ounce pack of seed or a 4-ounce pack of seed or whatever it is, make a note of how much you used, because how else are you ever going to know how much to plant or how much to have on hand? If you're saving seeds through the winter, you really want to know how much do you need to have on hand. And I do keep a lot of my seeds. I save a lot of seeds from our stuff year to year. I save our peas, spinach, green beans, wax beans, corn, onions, garlic I replant every year, lettuce. So there's a lot of things I don't need to buy seeds for. Squash, I'll do squash seeds often too. The trick though, if you want to save your own seeds and we'll save our seeds and we'll have all this wonderful food, make sure when you're doing that, if you're going to start doing that, you're getting, especially organic, but most importantly, heirloom seeds. Because if you get hybrid seeds and you save the seeds, from what I understand, and I am not an expert, but from what I understand, if you're using hybrid seeds and you save the seeds and you put them in the ground, they aren't going to breed true. The plant that you grow is not going to be similar, or there's a good chance it won't be similar to the plant that you got it from, because hybrids are a combination of 2 different varieties, and that's what made that plant that you grew. So if you take a seed from that, you're probably going to get a seed that is closer in habit to one of those parent hybrid plants, if that makes sense. So if you're wanting to save seeds, look for heirloom varieties, and I will, in the description below, I will put links to some of the only places that I have had really good luck buying seeds. And I would say germination, though. Last year I did a little test in my green beans because we had raised beds, and so I did a raised bed full of green bean seeds I had bought from an online supplier, which I won't name because this is not uncommon. And I had a whole bed of beans that I planted from seeds I harvested from our beans. And the ones that were our seeds, we had probably 99+% germination rate, because I put 2 seeds in every hole. And I had almost every single one of them, 2 plants came up. Like one that had like one plant, but they all germinated. The ones that were ordered from an online supplier, who shall remain unnamed, probably 80 to 90% germination, and there were some where I just had to replant where there were gaps. And the other thing that I have had some problems with, and I also won't say which ones have done this, but it's not uncommon, where I had one time where I planted seeds that I thought were fennel, and it was dill, and vice versa. I thought it was dill. I needed a whole bed of dill for my pickles, and I ended up with a whole bed of fennel, which is not the same if you're needing dill for pickles. I was so disappointed. And I've had last year also, I planted store-bought what was supposed to be wax beans, and they were specifically very much not wax beans. They were green. They were exactly like my green beans, except the flowers were a different color. which was fine, but also disappointing because we love wax beans. So be aware of that. It is going to happen. It'll probably happen with non-heirloom seeds as well, but it can happen. I will put the links down below to places to look for seeds, and chime in with any questions in the comments below. If you have any special hacks that you use to do your own garden planning, or if there's something I missed. This is just how I do it. It's just my process I've used over the last 20 plus years. When I'm planting, which I will probably do another video when I get around to actually planting, and this year I probably won't be planting anything inside, which this is also a weird year. It's a weird year for a couple of reasons. But this year I won't be probably planting anything inside early, which I always do. I have lights inside and I have a greenhouse. Probably won't be using either because we are going to be traveling some of the time right when I would be needing to take care of seedlings, and I don't want to put that on my kids to be like, take care of all the animals and also don't forget to water all the plants. So it's going to be an interesting year with starting things. I may be actually buying starts, which is a first in a really, I don't know. I never buy starts. So maybe I'll be down at the nursery this spring buying starts. Ugh, strange. Anyway, I hope this helps you. Thanks for listening to my ramble. If you made it this far, jump in the comments and let us know if you have anything exciting planned in your garden this year. If you're just getting started, it's time to start. It's time to start planning. It's never too early to start getting excited about next year's garden. And there's so many more things to be doing this year. We're going to be doing a lot of renovating. We're going to be pruning fruit trees, and we're going to be fixing and moving garden beds, and we're going to be putting in and tearing out some of the orchard trees. So jump in down below, let us know what you have going in your garden this year, and I'll look forward to seeing you down there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.